morning. Welcome to Somerset News Network. This is a personal comment from me, Ian Summerall. It's grave times we've got at the moment. I've been a political animal most of my life. I've been independent. I've never been a member of a political party, but I have been political. I was a parish councillor at 21. I was told I may have been the youngest parish councillor in around about 1978, when I was first elected on the local town council. I worked there for 8 years, and I said I'd speak for the kids, helping at the youth club. I was a youth club worker for 10 years. I ran a mobile disco unit part-time for 10 years. And when the gun trade went flat, we were going into recession, and we had a few shootings, and they were clamping down on firearms control. The gun trade went flat, and I wasn't earning any money. So I had to get a job. I did a couple of factory jobs, and I ended up doing 6 years in the civil service. And then I went back into the gun trade again. I'm a gunsmith by trade, that's what I do. But I've got a wide experience through my life. When I stood for the town council, I stood as an independent. I've never been a member of a political party. This is the first time in my life that I've actually said I'm supporting a political party. And that party is the Brexit party. Why? Because I think the parties we have had it so good for so long, their own way, it needs a shake-up. The Brexit party wants to take us out of the EU, and we need our sovereignty back. There's a basic principle that's involved. One of the things I used to do is look at old Acts of Parliament to see which ones were still current. At one stage I wrote to Betty Boothroyd and said, could she please explain if these Acts of Parliament, and I gave her a list, are still in force. She wrote me a lovely letter back, which I've now lost, unfortunately, and said, yes, all still in force. And the Acts of Parliament were the Magna Carta, Liberties of the Subject, Bill of Rights, Act of Settlement, Crown and Parliament Recognition Act. That takes us from 1215 with the Magna Carta. But they say, the Magna Carta was forced on King John to sign. I was always taught when I was at school that it was good King John. We now know this to be untrue. King John was trying to strip the country dry by taxing it. His brother was in prison, and he was controlling the country. The barons got together and forced the signing of the rights of people. That was the common law rights that they knew that they already had. Alfred the Great went around the country in a caravan and picked up all the common law, the law of England. And that's what the Magna Carta did. It reaffirmed the rights that we already had. And it tried to limit the big barons' hold on the country. One of the things that it did is stop the damming of the Thames. Now, in the Middle Ages, the Thames would have been used as a highway up and down the river. The Thames went all the way up to Gloucestershire. There's a pub in Gloucestershire called the Thames Head, and that's where it starts. It's only a little stream. It dries up in the summer, and then it floods. The rivers flood in the river, and then it starts going back down into the Thames again. But the river was navigable, and they would go up and down with ships, obviously with goods and trade. So they didn't want the river dammed, and this was part of the Magna Carta. It also stopped the fish going up the river, because we hunted. We fished the rivers, and we hunted the deer and the wild boar that was here in the country at the time. Then in 1354, the act that started the trade of being a solicitor and lawyers was the Liberties of the Subject Act. And that is where we get the phrase 1354, due process of law. A lot of people, even lawyers, don't understand that it's that old. That's where it comes from. Then there's liberties of the subject, which deals with rights and liberties that you have and confirmed should be maintained. And one of the things it did is said that if you've got freedoms and liberties, they should be upheld. Now, one of the clauses is this is also London, the City of London clauses. Now, one of the clauses in London is that it should be a free city. If you're having to pay a toll into the City of London, it's no longer a free city. I told one of the lawyers fighting the congestion charge in London this, and they poo-pooed me. They told me I didn't have a clue what I was talking about. But I've already had it confirmed by the Speaker of the House that it was the law. Anyway, that's old hat. That's gone now. We're now on Brexit. So we've got a government. Boris had a majority of 1, even with the Ulster Unionists, the Democratic Unionist Party, DUP. Unfortunately, where under May we had the ERG, the European Research Group, rebels fighting the May deal, which was the mother of all bad deals. It wouldn't have got us at the EU. What it would have done is put us into limbo land. And then we would negotiate a deal with the EU afterwards, which would mean we would have like a Norway deal, which means we would be in the EU, in the single market, in the single currency, having to have all their laws and controls, but with no seat at the table. We would not have had any ministers, any commissioners wouldn't have been English, and we wouldn't have had any MEPs. Totally undemocratic. So that had to be thrown out. But what we've got is we've had the referendum where 17.4 million people voted to leave the EU. All the parties stood on a platform in their manifestos that they would honour that referendum result and leave the EU. May's deal was trying to keep us in, but telling us it was out. That's why she had to go. Boris has said the right things. It's been fighting talk. If we can't get a deal, we'll leave with no deal, he said. And it's obviously got to be a deal that we agree with. Parliament has already disregarded the May deal. 3 times they voted on it and disregarded it. It wasn't just the backstop in Northern Ireland. There's more to it than that. So what deal are the Labour Party going to get? Oh, they want to stay in the single market and the custom union. Well, that's what the May deal may have ended up with. A Norway-style deal. Don't you understand this? Yeah. Frustrating, isn't it? These MPs have got one aim in life. That's to stop us leaving the EU. Why? Because they're not working for the British people. They are working for corporate government, corporate socialist government, even corporate communism, if you like. We have a number of secret organisations. Bilderberg is one. Kenneth Clark was a member of the Bilderberg Group. He was a secretary of it for a time. How many more of these MPs are supported or support the Bilderberg Group of a greater European state, a superstate? You know, we've signed the Maastricht Treaty, we signed the Lisbon Treaty. We never had a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty. Ireland had a referendum, they voted no, the EU didn't like it and made them vote again. How do we know that the results of the referendums are correct? How do we know that they haven't rigged them? I've been talking to one lady who was involved in a count, and I'm not going to say where or who she is, because she won't come on camera and tell me. She's frightened for her life. She told me that there was a side room and there were people there filling in postal votes to put through when the referendum was going through, and they were all voting Remain. This is a leap of speculation. I've got no proof of this, only the hearsay of this lady. But I believe she's telling the truth. This is speculation on my part. Could it be that they wanted a close referendum? They published polls leading up to the referendum that it was too close to call. 2% one way, 2% the other way. So on the day when they were rigging the election, if they were rigging it, what they were doing was trying to rig it 2% to Remain. So we just had a Remain vote. Unfortunately, too many people voted to leave. The Leave vote may have been up to 70%, even 80% in some areas. But because of the rigging, they've managed to get it down to only a 4% change from 48 to 52 in favour of leaving. Now, where does that leave us? How do I prove that it was rigged? I can't. It's sheer speculation on my part. But how do we know that they wouldn't rig another election? 2 councillors in Birmingham were imprisoned for rigging local elections. 6 ballot boxes where Nigel Farage was standing as an MP in the last election went missing. They were never found. In Swindon Town Council, they've just had to they've had a court case, and the council, the returning officer, gave a position to a Tory member, and it should have been given to an independent. That's just come up on our local news here. So elections are being rigged. We cannot trust them. We have to get back to being able to trust the elections. That's the first thing we have to do. Next thing we have to do is have a general election. Clear the air, have a general election, and put pro-Remain MPs out of work. It's the only thing we can do. Get rid of them. Boris has started by removing them from the Tory party. It shows how long the infiltration of the Tory party has gone. Oh, they're middle-of-the-road Conservatives. No, they're not. If they're real Tories, they never would have voted with that Marxist leader in the opposition, Corbyn. Let's face it. They're communists as well as he is. How can we trust them now? We have to vote for MPs that are going to get us to leave. Brexiteer MPs we need. If it's Tories or Brexit Party. Now, I'm supporting the Brexit Party this time. And if your area has an ERG member who is a Brexiteer, then I would suggest that the Brexit Party doesn't put a candidate against him and that we let him take his rightful place in Parliament. Now, are we going to get a hung Parliament or are we going to get a Tory Brexit government? My view, my personal view, is I'd like the Tories to win with about the same number of seats they've got now, but with the Brexit Party being in coalition with them so that we get a true Brexit and we leave the European Union with a good deal or no deal at all. As they said, a no deal is better than a bad deal, and the May deal was the mother of all bad deals. Anyway, this is Somerset News Network signing off, and this isn't going to end. We've now got the Labour Party trying to stop an election. How undemocratic can you be? Goodbye.